I am a sage named Simone, and I am here today because I want to talk about what does it look like to carry a legacy of liberation, um, especially when you have been transformed and in a different season. So first, I want to share the tea. I've drank most of mine because I've been sitting here for a while. Um, but before we get started, I just finished mine, but the tea of the day is going to be lavender lemonade. And I'll tell you why I chose this tea. One, I've been drinking it all day. And what I love about this tea is that it brings you back into your body. And I've got a lot of changes going on. I'm getting ready to move. It's exciting, but my body is feeling it the most. And I called it lavender lemonade because it's like an aid coming to you to help kind of recenter you back in your body. It's gonna have like oat straw, deeply nourishing plant is going to help support that. And like I think about the shift in your nervous system when you're moving into a whole new reality, where your spirit is already moved on to the next thing, but your body has this memory programmed into what used to be, what was the thing. And now you're shifting into what is the thing. And so your body and your spirit trying to get on the same page. It's a nervous system, a shock to the nervous system. And so that's why I love using oat straw because it's really good for change and transformation, for burnout, and for resetting your nervous system. It's naturally an adaptogen, which I loved learning about adaptogens because they help us to adapt to external stresses over time. And what that means is your body responds differently to stress. And so imagine a time where you have these patterns of like when I get stressed out, this happens. When I do this thing, this happens. Imagine what it's like when that is no longer the case. When when your body can see stress, feel it coming, and shifts the way it responds. When your nervous system knows that it's safe, even though there's so much chaos and change going on. So it has lavender in it. We all love lavender. It's really good for clearing the mind, helping to really settle that piece of you. Lemon peel, lemon balm, because I wanted it to taste good. So that's what we're sipping today. And before we get into the thing, so the reason that I wanted to talk about, let's first just pull a card for the main thing. And I'll explain to y'all why I wanted to talk about, like, what does it look like to continue a legacy of liberation? Like, you have come from a lineage or a people or a mindset of liberation, and what does it look like to continue that? And you think of like incorporating yourself, your personality into that practice. So the reason I'm saying this, I just went to a book signing for this book. Oh, okay, everything's well. Of Queen Mother. Hey, my day was actually pretty good, actually. I went to a book signing for this book, Queen Mother. Welcome in, everybody who's coming in. I'm talking about why I want to talk about this conversation today. And at this book signing, it was about the Black nationalism. And thank you. Thank you for the compliment on my glasses. But it was this conversation about Black nationalism and the liberation movement and all of these things of the, I think probably peaking around like the 50s or the 60s. But anyway, so it talks about an unsung hero, Queen Mother, Audley Moore, and how she was a mother of the movement. And it also kind of hinted to some stories connecting to my great grandmother, which was really cool. So it was a very like powerful moment of, recognizing again that you come from this lineage of powerful women or people who are positioned to make a difference. Thank you. Make a difference in their communities. And so you feel like you're not doing enough. You feel like your legacy is not that. And so what I wanted to come here to talk about is what does it look like to carry on a legacy of liberation um, when society looks different, the world looks different, you look different. Like, I hear stories about my grandmother, but I am not my grandmother. And how to see the liberation in just that, like to see that you have a different role, a different space to fulfill, and how you can do that in this new legacy of liberation. So first card was Ten of Water, Ten of Cups. That's red clover. This card automatically tells me that the reason we're having this conversation is nourishment. It is pouring into self. It is taking care of yourself. There's so much care that's needed. You know, when you think about the work that all of these freedom fighters have done, there wasn't a lot of space for care. There wasn't a lot of space for nourishment. There wasn't a lot of time for rest. And so, what does it look like for you to live a life where that is the center of what you do? You know, yes, you are in service to the community, to other people. And then you got the Hermit card. But what does it look like to also be in service to yourself? Hey, thank you. What does it look like to be in service to yourself? What does it look like not just to consider your community, but consider what your needs? And so what does it look like to live a life of fulfillment through your needs being fulfilled? And so when I think about all of this work that all of these people have done, and if I had to imagine like what it looks like when they look back on their lives and their sacrifices and all of those things, what would they tell the next generation of people? What would they tell the next generation of women, of healers, of community leaders? Is like, don't forget yourself. Don't forget yourself. And don't forget to take care of yourself, and to all these things that you're building, because you got the Seven of Earth, which is actually perfect timing, because this is legacy work. This is things that may take time to build. When you build them, though, they're solid. And so thinking of building on top of these like foundations that can withstand the test of time, that can carry you. And so I think there's a lot of conversations around not being a martyr. And as Jada K's story says, is severing the savior. And I really think that's a beautiful way to show that there are new ways to show up in community. There are new ways to show up in leadership, to show up not just nourishing yourself, but nourishing other people. But there are different ways that we're learning to show up for ourselves, that we're learning like we can build a foundation on, that other people can reap the benefits from, if we can teach people how to care for themselves. Because that's always going to extend to other people. You know, if you take somebody who is in a position of influence and you teach them everything they need to know about how to care for themselves, how to care for their community, how to love on people, other people automatically are going to learn those things too, and they're going to pass those things on. And so one of the conversations was like remembering that you belong to yourself. And, you know, you can commit to everything, you can be everything for everybody. But if you don't have any ownership over self, like that's not a legacy that can continue. That's not something that can sustain you. And so even as I listen to their work, like as a person with a like kind of a nurturing mindset of like, who cares for the people who care for everybody else? That's the question I'm left with, is how did they really care for themselves when they did all of this work of liberation, and all these freedom fighters who kind of set the tone for the lives that we can live, like we have the ability to live now. How did they care for themselves? Who cared for them? What would it look like today if they were alive today, if they were our age? What would it look like for them to take on this kind of mindset of like, I need to be cared for. I need to have the resources I need. I need to have, like, I have needs that need to be met. And I don't, I always say like they did have a choice, but I feel like you really don't have a choice if that's in your heart and that's what you were here for. But they were positioned where they needed to be to make a difference, to shift the trajectory for all of us. And so now, like looking at yourself as being positioned into where you need to be, what does that look like for you to show up like that? What does that look like for you to find freedom and standing truthfully in who you were created to be, like who you were designed to be? So I'm gonna pull from the Oracle deck. This one is the Earthcraft Oracle. This was actually my first Oracle deck. So I just love going back to that. Especially when it's a topic of like personal liberation and freedom, because to me, like it signaled like this main space of liberation. This first moment of like, I'm gonna step out and just do what feels good for me, what feels right for me. And so the card fell, but the first card that we got was the Thunderstorm card, which is all about change. It is all about like surrendering to the change. And There's something happening within you right now that needs your surrender. In order for this change to fully happen, it just needs you to surrender. It needs you to be present with what's happening, you know? And so it's hard to surrender because we don't know what's going to happen on the other side. We don't know, what truths we're going to face, what pieces of ourselves we're going to have to leave behind. But of course, there are going to be pieces you got to leave behind. But it will be pieces that it's time. Like, it'll be pieces that it's time. And so I think about one of the things that I talked about with my therapist, and releasing the belief system or the person who chose that person, like who was in the mindset to choose that situation or to choose that way of life, releasing them, like freeing them from that situation. And so when you look at you have the ability to do that for your life, to be able to surrender to that change, to liberate yourself. Like, to me, that's what it looks like that's what it looks like to continue a legacy of liberation. For me, I'm like, well, I got to go into be a history major. I got to learn everything I need to learn about history so that I can continue this legacy that I've been left. But the reality is, like, I'm continuing that legacy by showing up authentically and who I want to be and how I want to affect community and how I want to serve community. And more importantly, how I want to serve myself, how I want to nourish myself. How do I want to pour into that container that will spread to other people? And so that's liberation. Like, that is liberation work. And so I think about the thing that still constricts most of us are our religious and spiritual beliefs, and the liberation that happens in that space when we choose, to just ask a question. And that's always the hardest part. So I'm going to pull another card. I kind of like doing lives. And if y'all join the live, can y'all like it? Because if you like it, it helps other people to find it. Even if you don't plan on sticking around, you can just like it so other people can find it and see if what we're talking about here is helpful for them. So I'm going to do another card. I feel like I'm going to do two more just to kind of speak to this. We got the Mountain, which is all about perspective. It's all about this pilgrimage to gain perspective, to gain insight. And we got two. Okay. And what happens when it's a leadership card. It's definitely a leadership card. It's definitely a slowing down card, because it asks you to go to the height of the situation, go to the peak of the situation and take a look down. Like, look for synchronicities, look for patterns, look for clues that are signaling your journey towards liberation, on how to liberate yourself, and how to kind of free your spirit and your mind from these spaces and these places that you no longer want to be in. Like, I think it's one thing to know you don't want to be here or be like in this situation. Let me say that specifically. And then it's another thing to walk away from situations that no longer serve you. And I was sitting here kind of just meditating on all that had transpired and all that I watched and witnessed. And hold on, I wrote something down that I wanted to share with y'all. Let's see. The hardest part, I said it's not in the teaching of the thing. It's the choice to liberate yourself and the will to follow through. That is the hardest work you'll do. And so that's what it felt like this conversation was about, was the hardest thing you'll do is make the choice to liberate yourself and then follow through. And so wherever like you need liberation from, wherever you need freedom in whatever space that is, whether it's relationship, whether it's religion, whether it is career or work, noticing is one thing, and then making the choice to follow through with it is the beginning of your new life. It is the beginning of a new way of life. So yeah, the next cards you got were the Side of the Owl and Transform with the Raven. And so the Side of the Owl is about like, these are not just coincidences. There's something that you are privy to, that you can see, that you may not even, you can feel it. You may not literally be able to see it, but you can feel it. You can be present with it. You know that there's this thing that you're trying to touch, that you're trying to reach, that you're trying to get to. And even this Transform with the Raven card is all about like using your resources. If you can't go through it, can you go around it? And so there's something you're trying to gather, trying to collect. And so this perspective is going to be important to this change. And your ability to see beyond what everyone else sees or feel beyond what everybody else feels is directly connected to you getting to this resource, you know? So there's a resource that's available to you that you know how to get to, that you have access to, that needs your shift in perspective. Because I see a shift in perspective when you got the change and the mountain. There's a shift in perspective required for you to see the resources already available to you, already available for your liberation. Because this conversation, that's what we're talking about, is how to liberate yourselves. And when we started this conversation, it started with the 10 of cups, the 10 of water in this deck. And so that is symbolizing a need to rest, a need to center your nourishment. And then as you think about how you want to liberate yourself, or ways you can liberate yourself, or ways that you can collect the resources that you need, it has to be centering this nourishment. It has to be centering in pouring into yourself and caring for yourself. So I just think that's, nothing is ever a coincidence. All of this is medicine that we need. And if I think of, like there's a thing about how like children are born and like they're born at a time when their medicine is needed the most. So, like if you think about like a mother who may be struggling with this thing, the child is then born at that time and they kind of teach the mother about this thing, or eventually they teach them about this thing. Or eventually they kind of live out their lives in a way of what their mother needed. Or the mothers, because I'm always talking about the mothers, what the mothers needed. And so when I think about the mothers have this responsibility for the lineage, in a sense of caring for everybody, nurturing everybody, seeing things that everybody can't see, centering other people above themselves. And so I think a lot of us, our liberation looks like centering yourself. I think about, that's what Center Sage is about. It's like, hey, like there's enough resources within me that can guide me to a life of full liberation, a life of true authenticity, a life where I'm directly connected to myself. And so that to me is what it looks like to continue the legacy of liberation. And so I want, if I had anything to like share with y'all, to leave with you, is to look at what your life looks like what your life could look like liberated. And if you don't want to use the word liberated, what could your life look like if you were more of yourself? Like what would change for you if you were more of yourself, if you showed up as more of yourself? And it's just such a powerful tool that I feel like we don't talk about enough, is what life could look like for you if you were more of yourself. Not just like, what life do you want? Or like learning more things about yourself, but imagining seeing a life where I have this weird quirky thing that I want to show up in. I want to be, I wish everybody knew this about me, but and then like seeing life shift, like visualizing the shift of life when you show up as more of that. And so that's what liberation looks like on the most basic way of thing, or basic way of looking at it, is being liberated through being able to show up fully in a space, like your whole self in a space. Imagine how many ways and times they couldn't show up fully as themselves. So yeah, I feel like I've been rambling a little bit, but let me see. Maybe we'll pull one more card just to kind of take with us for the week. Because I'll be in and out this week. I don't know that I'll be doing these every day, but yeah, let's just do one for the road to carry us through the week. What does liberation look like for us this week? That's a good question. I like that question. I kind of wanted that card. I got a bunch of cards coming out, so it's gonna look like a few things is what it feels like. All right, liberation looks like the 9 of air, 9 of swords. That's the anxiety. It looks like not being held by that, not being held by your anxious mind, not letting your anxious mind make the decisions for your life. Liberation looks like the Justice card. And so we had got that one in reverse. The Justice card. And so sometimes when I see the Justice card, I really look at it literally. And it's like, what do you deserve? What was always meant to be yours? What was always meant to be experienced by you? What hasn't happened that needs to happen for your life or your space to be fulfilled? And then liberated in our awakening. So our viewpoints, how we see the world. What's the other one for this card? Is this the Wheel of Fortune? What is this in the traditional tarot? It might be. I think this is another world. No, okay. I need to know what this. I can't even research it on my phone because my phone is up here. But this is the Awakening card. I'm trying to think of what is it in the traditional tarot because I don't think it's Awakening. But I'm gonna read this. Maybe this will trigger a thought. Make an offering to the sacred. Awaken to your life purpose. Devotion to your calling is the devotion to the world. I cannot think of it. But this really just, again, reiterates the message in showing up fully in your own anointing. And I think that's kind of where we ended at is like, that is the most liberated thing you can do is show up in your own anointing, no matter who's watching, no matter how scared you are to be seen or to ask for what you need. But the most liberated thing you can do is show up in your anointing. And so that's what I have for y'all tonight. I just wanted to kind of show that. I wanted to share that. Hopefully that was helpful. Next time we're going to make tea together. And then I'm going to do pull some cards around that and conversation. So hopefully you'll come and join me. But again, I am a sage named Simone. I pop up randomly and frequently right now. Because I want to be on live a little more. I want to have some conversation back and forth and just kind of chat. So, yeah, if y'all have things y'all want to talk about, questions, topics regarding tea, regarding the cards. I think I'm also going to do a learning about the tarot. It's something I just want to do is like learn with y'all. And so like going through the different cards and gathering all this information about it and then coming on here and talking about it and breaking it down and seeing how it's relevant for us in the moment. So yeah, I want to learn that. I want to do that together in community. I do my best learning when I got my accountability partners. So I'm going to come here for accountability and share all the remedies and tea. So if you are not sipping tea, you need to get you some tea. If your body is feeling the angst of the week, the angst of these changes that are coming in for all of us, find you a tea that feels deeply nourishing. And that's so interesting that that was the first card that I got. I didn't even put that together. And the tea that I'm drinking today is lavender lemonade. And so considering what it looks like to nourish your body through change and finding your own recipe or remedies or like what's your thing that makes you feel nourished, that makes you feel held, that makes you feel like, you know what, it's all going to be okay. That makes you feel like mama's sitting right next to you, walking with you through the thing. And that's what you hold on to. Because the changes that are coming in, the changes that are happening are liberating you. So that's all I had today. And I will see y'all next time.